and looking on the screen, just kind of get a sense of that. All the people there, Mount Sinai, and and we've actually been looking where they have gone from Egypt to Sinai, and they get to this place. It says in the third month, so we don't know if it took 3 months to get there, sometime in the third month. So we don't know exactly the time frame there, but it would only be days or just a weeks, a short period of time. So it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But they get there in the third month, and so one of the things that we're going to see in this section that we're going to be looking at this morning is we're going to see where a covenant is offered, a covenant is ratified. Then we're going to see the covenant broken and the covenant renewed. Now, I'm not sure how far we'll get, but in this place here at Sinai, they're going to be there about a year in this area, and during this time, that they've got much to learn. There's many things that God wants them to know. There's to set up certain things, and so just kind of giving that background, if you will, and you kind of look at this, and it's going to be their place for a little while. They're going to be in this area for a little while. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, Tell the children of Israel, you have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. And so we see here where God is, he's telling Moses, that he wants a relationship with him, a very unique relationship. And it's something that, is that valuable? What would y'all say? Would that be, of all the people of the earth, is that something that to have that close relationship with God, is it something that should be valued? Yeah, I don't think you could put a price on it. I think what God is offering to them is just tremendous. It's absolutely tremendous. And so, we want to get that sense, of what's being offered to them, what the position that they're in, how blessed that they are. So Moses came and called the elders of the people and set before them all these words that the Lord had commanded them. All the people answered together and said, All that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses reported the words of the people to the Lord. So now here's kind of like God's kind of putting this out there. This is what he wants. This is something that he would wants to bring about. And it gets reported to people. And they say, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. So right now, at this moment, things sound great. God's offering this tremendous opportunity. And the people are like, sure, yes, we're, And unfortunately, it's on the surface it looks great. But as we get into it, we're going to see that God will always do his part. But the question comes in on people, and how they respond. They can say one thing, but they don't always do what they say. The Lord said to Moses, Go to the people and consecrate them now. And tomorrow let them wash their garments and be ready the third day. For on the third day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. And ye shall set limits for the people all around, saying, Take care not to go up into the mountain or touch the edge of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall be stoned or shot. Whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people, and they washed their garments. And he said unto the people, Be ready against the third day, come not to your wives. So God is telling Moses on the third day, and he's getting them ready. One of the things, they're going to wash their garments. They're going to, they're making preparation. The husband and wives aren't supposed to, nothing's supposed to be going on there. And so the point of it is, I think God is trying to get in their minds, this is a big deal, and you need to be ready when you face this situation. It's not something, this isn't just commonplace or just, oh, it's another day. This is not going to be just another day. This is tremendously significant. And in this section of the Pentateuch, going through there and seeing this is the weight that we need to get and comprehend to understand the whole, if you will. And actually, I think looking at their situation, to really it can help put into focus the relationship that God's offered to us. We not the same, obviously, but the point of it is, it's significant. It's tremendous to have a relationship with God. So they're to get ready. So in Exodus 19, 16 through 19, let me read that real quick. Exodus 19, 16 through 19. Then it came to pass on the third day in the morning, there were thunderings and lightnings and a thick cloud on the mountain, and the sound of the trumpet was very loud, so that all the people who were encamped trembled. Let me pause there. Do y'all think of does it mention a trumpet in the New Testament? Yeah, I think 1 Corinthians 15 talks about the trumpet being sounded. 1 Thessalonians 4, and I can't remember the one, I think in Revelation too. But the point of it is, notice here, a very loud, all the people who were in camp trembled. And so at some point in the future, there will be a trumpet sounds when that's going to be it. So when you think about this trumpet sounding here for them, oh yes, go ahead, sorry.
Hebrews 12 kind of goes into a little more detail.
Oh, have you got that? Go ahead and read that.
Well, I'll start verse 18.
Yeah.
For you have not come down to the mountain that may be touched and burned with fire, into blackness and darkness and tempest, and the sound of a trumpet and the voice of words, so that those who heard it begged that the word should not be spoken to them anymore, for they cannot endure what was commanded. And if so much as a beast touches the mountain, it shall be stoned or shot with an arrow. And so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I am exceedingly afraid and trembling.
Yeah, even Moses, he was, it talks about the people in the camp trembling. Now we know Moses also, and so this magnificent sight and sound of all this, the people, God has got their attention, and you would think with all this going on, there's not going to be any problems. Hey, they got it. They're gonna not have any problems. Let me pick back up in 17 and read verse through 19. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was completely in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire. Its smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. And when the blast of the trumpet sounded long and became louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him by voice. So, this idea. So I don't know when the end of the world is coming, but can you imagine, that idea of hearing a trumpet that would be, when I was reading this, I kind of gave pause to that, thinking like that. What they're seeing is just tremendous. And it's having the effect that it should have on them. They're trembling. They're fearful. And as Ryan read, even Moses, Moses, he wasn't immune to it either. So that lets you know this was an awesome sight. The sound, all the things going on, this mountain like it was on fire, smoke, what they could smell, what they could get with all their senses, the sight, the sound, what they could smell, all the stuff going on. And when you're around people that are in fear, you get that too. You get that sense. It kind of grips you as well. So this is just a tremendous moment right here. So God makes a covenant. And let me pause right here. What is a covenant? It's a binding agreement. So it's not, you don't make a covenant and it's like, I'll take that back. I think people think now it's, when we think of covenant, what's one of the most common that we see around us? Generally. Marriage, yeah. That's a binding agreement. And you see how people treat it today, so you get the sense that it's not, is it really binding, but it's supposed to be. And God's going to make a binding agreement, something that it doesn't change. It's not going to be like, well, I changed my mind. I didn't really think so. No, it's God on God's side. He's not going to change. This is set. The people are supposed to be just like that. When we agree to it, we accept it. We're supposed to do it, and there's not supposed to be any. There's no gray area. There's no, I don't know what to do. No, you should know what to do. But we see where God makes a covenant with Israel in 19:3-6. Israel agrees to keep the commandments God will give. We've seen that in 19:7-8. God speaks to Israel aloud, giving them the basic rules of the covenant after giving the 10 Commandments. And that's really like, we think of our Constitution, it's like the foundation that the things are going to be built on. Those are the rules, the principles, if you will, the foundational things. So the 10 Commandments, God's going to give them the 10 Commandments, and obviously there's going to be other things that he wants included as well. But the 10 Commandments are like the heart, if you will, the foundational thing. And so Israel asks that God speak through Moses, because with all how fearful they are of the situation, God continues his instruction to Moses, who in turn writes down God's instructions. Then then God is ready to finalize this covenant, and it is ratified with the people. So when you ratify something, you confirm it. It goes into force, if you will. And so that's what we're going to see in 24. So it's kind of like, we're not going to get into all the nuts and bolts of, this requirement, this rule, this, what God said. He had certain areas, this is what you're to do in this area. This is what you're doing in this area, as it were. So we're not going to get into the nuts and bolts. And we're going to kind of go through it, but we are going to touch on things. So we're not going to say we're not going to look at them, but we're not going to dive in deep. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting iniquity on the fathers, upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love and keep my commandments. So God's telling them there are consequences. Those who do not obey, and then, then as it says here, those who hate him, they're not going to do what he says. He's going to deal with that. And those who love him, he can show mercy. He will show mercy. So the point is, whichever way you decide to go, there's consequences. You want to be in rebellion? There's consequences. You want to be in obedience? There's consequences. God will show mercy, and we'll kind of get into some of the things he's going to say, how he's really going to take care of them. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. And I'll say this now, you hear songs, and I was around somebody that recently, she was an older woman, and but she used the name Jesus. The way that she did it, it was in vain. And I think people get in the habit of saying things like I'll just say it's like in songs you'll hear like OMG, and I won't, y'all know what that means. Or people that for a while that was a saying I think people just threw out, and it just really amazes me how people can show so. Well, right here denotes empty, frivolous, insincere. God's name is to be treated with reverence. It is not to be desecrated either by false swearing, and it's got some verses there that we're not going to look at, or by being used disrespectfully for any other frivolous or idle purpose. And I think that's what we see. And that's something I hope we don't ever do. I hope that we have that reverence for God's name. And we don't, obviously, as in cursing and reviling, and it's just amazing how people can do that, or to support false pretensions of being able to use magic or divination or predict the future. And so, and you talk about those false prophets, and there were people who claimed to speak in God's name. No. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall thou labor and do all thy work. But in the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. And so here we see a glimpse of that's one of the reasons it's so special, is because it was that day after God had finished creation. He wasn't tired, as it had been pointed out. Everything was complete then, but it was significant, and God wanted, he tied this to that. Like I say, it's amazing how things have purpose, and they can parallel certain things, and they're connected. And so we're going to see here, and let me ask y'all this: when they were slaves in Egypt, do you think they had some off days? You think they worked a 5-day work week? I don't think so. It seemed like it got to be so bad because they were producing at such a rate. They were putting more and more on them, trying to break them, if you will. And then, if you remember when they first asked Pharaoh about going in, he said, well, now you're not going to get any straw. So all that was on them, even more got put onto them. I'm just saying. So you would think this would be something like, what? We get a day of rest, but within this day we're connecting it with God, and and so it has significance. It's not just a day off where I just do whatever I want to. It's I think God would intend them for it to have the meaning that it should. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon that land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill. And so it goes into the primitive root properly to dash in pieces, that is to kill. And I think we can see how this would be a foundational thing, in any society, And so he's making sure this is something, you think it would go without saying, but he wants them to make sure that they understand that. Life is placed at the head of these commandments because it is the basis of human existence, and in life is attacked the image of God. The omission of the object still remains to be noticed, as showing the prohibition includes not only the killing of a fellow man, but the destruction of one's own life or suicide. So, and that's one thing I don't think people talk about, but not to kill, and you can't even. And life is precious, and we are created in the image of God. Thou shalt not commit adultery, and so this is commit adultery figuratively, to apostatize. Adultery, woman that breaketh wedlock. And adultery, which is used in Leviticus, both man and woman, signifies to distinguish from fornication. So the idea here, he talks about adultery, and that's usually where at least one is married. Could be both, or at least one is married. Of a husband with a wife, or of another, or of a wife with a husband of another. Marriage, according to the original institution, made husband and wife one flesh. So again, we talked about this being a covenant, And in this unique covenant, God makes them that they become, as it were, one flesh. And so basically, in this, the precept of the Decalogue binds both man and woman equally. That is, well, right before that it said, but the adultery of a married man with an unmarried woman was thought lightly of. No, it's thou shalt not commit adultery. There is no this is worse than that, or this is no. Don't do it. Just simply, adultery is not acceptable in any way you want to look at it. Thou shalt not steal, and that kind of goes without saying. A primitive root to thieve, literally, figuratively, by implication to deceive, carry away by stealth. And so the idea is here, that theft, to steal, is not acceptable. And we, in the society we live in, and you see where there are people who just, they think nothing of, if they can get whatever they can get. And I hate to say it, but, one of the things I didn't notice this, but go back to the Western days. Who are the people who seem to get the most attention? And I don't know if they'd write stuff about them and everything, but who would be those people that would get the most attention? And it'd be you're like Jesse James, your criminals, people who do this kind of stuff, and they're kind of big on lawlessness, if you will, but stealing and that kind of thing. And so, I hate to say it, but I think there's some people that kind of look on it like, well, if I can get away with it, hey, I'm pretty clever, or and again, it's one of those things. There's no good scenario you could put it in where people steal and they do those kind of things. And so we've got to realize thou shalt not steal, and there's not a good situation that you can put that in. I just thought about that where, you go back to, like I said, the Western days, and I think I've heard where people would, they'd write stories about to people out in the East about the West, about these gunslingers and doing whatever, stealing, robbing stagecoaches. People like to read that. They like to, oh yeah, well, it's almost like, I won't say you're making them heroes, but if you're not careful, you're not looking at them like, those people, how could they do that? And so we need to see it as it is. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. To turn back, to say again, hence, to affirm and specify, to testify, to exhort. False witness of two kinds, public and private. We either seek to damage our neighbor by giving false evidence against him in a court of justice, or simply basically slander him to others in social intercourse with them. The form of expression here used points especially to the false witness of the former kind. Doing that part where you're trying to, in a court of law, you're trying to do something. But it does not exclude the latter, where we can wrong a man by false evidence. The court may anyway, whether we do it publicly or privately. And here it mentions 1 Kings 21:13, and that's referring back to when Ahab wanted Nabal's vineyard, and he couldn't get it. And Jezebel came up with this very clever plan. Do y'all remember how she came up? What kind of plan she had to get Nabal's vineyard? She had him killed, but what she did? Yes.
She had someone claim that he had blasphemed God.
And the king, yeah. They had two witnesses. They two low-life people who came up and publicly accused Naboth, and so they took him out and they stoned him. And so this is an actual situation where to bear false witness cost a man his life, and you can imagine through the years, and even in our country, false testimony, false things, you can do all kinds of damage. Not only false oaths to deprive a man of his life or his rights are here prohibited, but all whisperings, tale-bearing, slander, in a word, whatever is supposed as truth, which is false, in fact, tends to injure another in his goods, person, characters, against the spirit and letter of the law. And I think that's what God was trying to get to them. And I think, as you go through their history, it's kind of like they're trying to figure out, okay, how far do I carry this? I think God's trying to get them to understand there is no good, there is no acceptable way to do this. It's wrong however you do it. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet his neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. And to covet, literally to desire, which is used of a perfectly lawful and indeed laudable affection, but it acquires its bad sense solely from a context. And in Joshua chapter 7, in verse 21, it's talking about Achan there. And you remember when they went in, that generation that came in Jericho, they're going to take Jericho. And God told them, he said, don't take anything from it. It's accursed. And then there's things that, that you're to give to God, as it were. But you're not to take anything from there. You're not to get the spoils of it. And Achan saw some things he wanted, and he took them, and he hid them. God knew, and there was sin in the camp, and so it was disastrous to a certain point, and it's something that shouldn't have happened. And in Micah 2:2, it talks about those who take fields by violence and seize houses, and they're oppressive. They through oppression they do certain things, but it's this evil desire, if you will. It's one thing to, I guess, to admire, like, wow, you have a beautiful car, or you got a beautiful house, or you got this, or whatever it is. You may have something. Was there any hands? I didn't want to overlook. You may have something. And, and people are like, well, that's very nice. But when I look at it and I go, man, I'm going to get that. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to, and I got that malicious kind of evil spirit, if you will, about it. Here in the Mosaic Law, takes a step enormously in advance of any other ancient code. Most codes stopped short at the deed. A few went on to words. Not one attempted to control thoughts. Thou shalt not covet teaches men that there is one who sees the heart, to whose eyes all things are naked and open, and who cares for the inward thought or motive from which the act proceeds. And do you see how that can be? I want what you got so bad. I'm calculating. Maybe I'll help you have an accident, or maybe I'll conspire with some other folks. One way or another, we're gonna get it. And so you see how that could be working in somebody's mind, and it doesn't need to be there. You don't even need to let that thought proceed on, as it were, because God sees and God knows. And so it's one of those sins that, if you have those things, even if you can't get them, God knows what's in your heart. And so, as it says here, this seems, it goes to the very thought of what's going on. It's one thing to admire and appreciate, and it's another thing like, I want it, it's mine. Yeah, I'm going to get it, so it'll be mine. Just saying. Here's a picture here, and you see a man on one side, he's got a family. I guess it's his wife, and she's got this stuff. But it looks like he's looking over at this other guy who's in a tux, and he's got a butler, and and almost like he's looking at him like, oh man, that guy's got it made. He's just, and instead of like, what? You've got a wife, and look, here she is, she's cooks for you. Here's your child looking up to you and everything like that. So I think it hits the sentiment there of how we can look at situations and like, oh man, if I had that kind of money he's got, and I had a butler come in and he's probably got some really top-notch steak under. I'm just saying that we could get carried away with this, but I think y'all get the idea. Are we under the Ten Commandments? What do y'all think? I don't think so. But let's kind of compare those, the Ten Commandments, have no other gods. Who has asked somebody to read, I think it's Rodney, if you'd read Matthew 4 and 10.
Then said Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve.
All right. And I'm going to go ahead and read Matthew 22. I thought I had this one marked. I apologize about that. Well, actually, I did. I just didn't use my little marker thing. All right. So Matthew 22:37. Jesus said, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first. I'm going to go ahead and read a little extra because I like to be inclusive here. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And so the point is, if we get this down, yeah, we got it. I think you also have 1 John, do not make an idol or any likeness in 1 John 5:21.
Yeah, little children, keep yourselves from idols. Amen.
Yeah, little children, keep yourselves from idols. And again, we just read Matthew 22, 37 there, actually through 40. And so, you know, that just lets us know, yeah, where idols are not going to be a problem. Do not take the name of the Lord God in vain. I think Rodney probably has that one too.
Which one?
James 5 and 12.
Yeah. But above all things, my brethren, swear not neither by heaven, neither by the earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, lest you fall into condemnation.
And so what I did was I went on ahead and tried to add to a little bit here. Let's see. And I think I wrote down the wrong. Oh, no, I'm in 7. I'm sorry, 6 in verse 9. Okay, yeah, about taking the name of the Lord God in vain. In the model prayer in Matthew 6 and 9, in this manner, therefore pray, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Let me pause right there. That hallowed be your name that Jesus was trying to teach them. And it means to make holy or sacred, honored, consecrated, which is set apart. Also, I didn't stop there. In Romans chapter 9, 17, and again, this alludes back to where we've been at, but it's in the New Testament here. Romans 9:17. For the scripture says to the Pharaoh, For this very purpose I have raised you up, that I may show my power in you, and that my name may be declared in all the earth. That idea, his name, it's not something that you would just throw around lightly. And so I also wrote down Revelation 6:19. I don't think I marked that one. Revelation 6:19. Let me read that real quick. This is one of the plagues, the bowls. 6:19. Here we go. I'm sorry. 6. What did I put? I've now lost my place. Oh, here it is. It got flipped over. I'm sorry. Revelation 16:9. I'm sorry, not 6. It's 16:9. And this is going through the Revelation has a lot of things that it talks about there. But this is the 4th bowl in verse 9. And men were scorched with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of God, who has power over the plagues, and they did not repent and give him glory. And so the idea is God's name is not something we lightly throw around. We are to his name is hallowed, and it's not something that we take lightly. Remember the Sabbath. Who has Colossians 2:16? Okay, Purby, would you mind reading that one?
Colossians 2:16.
Yeah.
Therefore, no one exact as your good
And again, I didn't want to leave it just as that. Yeah, the Sabbath is not something that we have to observe today, like as Purdy just read. But one of the things I find very interesting that we need to get, God didn't leave us without, that there's not significant times for us. And I just wrote down 3 verses here. In Mark 16:2, very early in the morning on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb. The sun had risen. And let's jump to verse 9. Now when he rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he cast 7 demons. All right, so you see some significance there. You know, the first day of the week. And then John chapter 20 and verse 19. John 20, verse 19. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, when the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood in the midst of them and said to them, "Peace be with you." And then I just went with one more, Acts 20:7, where it talks about, them, how the disciples met on the first day. Now on the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul, ready to depart the next day, spoke to them and continued his message until midnight. So, while it's not, not the same thing, I didn't want us to lose the sense that, while we don't, the Sabbath, but we do have an anchor, if you will. The Sabbath was like an anchor to them. This is significant. This is something, there's a reason you got it, and it means something. Today, we have an anchor. First day of the week, we're here, and so just kind of getting the sense of just how marvelous God is. He didn't leave us without. Honor your father and mother, and I think Purdy's got that one, and he's going to read some additional passages.
Ephesians 6.
Yeah, starting in verse 1 and through verse 4.
Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may be well with you, and that you may live long on the earth. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. And
the reason I had him read the extra, because that inclusiveness, it's not just the children. You see the connection there. The children, the parents. We live in a blessed time, and God has really tried to help us. It's like everybody has a part to play. It's not like just the children honor. It's fathers, you got a responsibility. And you realize it's like nobody's outside of the, well, it doesn't apply to me. Yeah, it does. You shall not murder. Who's got 1 John 3:15? Okay.
everyone who hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him.
And I was gonna read Romans 13, and again, I'll be a little more inclusive. I'm gonna pick up in verse 8, not just read 9 through 10. Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet. And if there is any other commandment, all are summed up in this saying, namely, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfillment of the law. So this is where God, I think, was trying to get them to. It's where we should be now, that we look at it and we're like, you mean I gotta do this, but can I, how far do I have to carry this? All the way. Because if you've got that right kind of heart that God wants you to have, you're going to do the right thing. Like when you deal with a brother or sister, can you be mean to them? Can you mistreat them? Can you take advantage of them? Can you steal from them? No. Can't do any of that. So just saying. All right. Let's see. And you shall not commit adultery. 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 10. Yeah. Well, I'll let Justin go ahead.
Know ye not that the righteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of God.
Okay. And so again, and we've read Romans 13, and we get the sense there. You shall not steal. Ken, which number did I give you? Okay, well, wait your turn then. All right. You shall not steal, Ephesians 4:28. Did I give that to somebody or? Good job to you. Yeah.
Ephesians 4
Brother Jolly.
and 28.
Yeah.
Let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give him who has need.
Exactly. And so this idea, again, it gets to the heart. And that's where God, I think, was trying to get them, but he had to, because you look at them, you look at all the issues they had, and it's like you can't go directly, he's trying to get them there, and they're not even willing to do that. And so, again, we live in a most blessed time, and hopefully it's gotten to the heart. You shall not bear false witness. Did I give Colossians 3, 9, and 10 to anybody? Okay, you want to mark it?
Colossians 3, 9, and 10. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator.
Right. So the thing is, we're again, and I won't read Romans 13 again, but we get the sense that, all the bases are covered. It's not something that we're looking to well, if I can't do this, can I do? No. We love one another. Because we realize what God's done for us, that God loves us, and we want mercy. We give mercy. And I think Ken, I think this will be you. You shall not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. Ephesians 5:3.
But sexual immorality and all impurity or covetousness must not even be named among you, as is proper among the saints. Right.
So it mentions covetous in there, but it has some other things in there. And again, God's expectations are high, but they're reasonable. And it's kind of like these are for our own good. The people who adhere to this, it's just amazing how well things can go for them. And especially, you realize that we're looking to go on to something greater. And so, it's just amazing that, we have a relationship with God, and it all fits together. Any other thoughts or anything? Would that say a hand or anything? Yes.
Jesus says, love the Lord with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. And he says the second commandment is likened to it, love thy neighbor as thyself. That covers all of the 10 commandments.
Yeah, that gets it.
The 4 commandments relate to God. The second 6 commandments, all about your neighbor.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Well, we have to call it there, so I'll go ahead and ring the thing. And Ronnie, if you hit that.